Grab your gabagoo, because the Many Saints of Newark is here to remind us that the mobsters are the real reason we're scared of New Jersey, not the Jersey Shorecast.
I'm here by myself. Everybody else
What
is
the
over.
Are you delusional?
Are you delusional?
Oh, bada bing, bada boom, and just like that, we're back in the world of the Sopranos. Sorry, when I got something stuck in my throat, I sound a bit like an Italian-American stereotype. Won't happen again. Nearly 15 years since the series went off the air, and over 30 years before our story began, is where we pick up with the Many Saints of Newark. Now, making a feature film of one of the greatest series of all time is no tall task. In fact, I don't think it's ever really been done on this level before. So what we have here is a continuation of a series that has long endured past its finale. It continues to be recognised today as one of the greatest and most influential series of all time, and continues to seemingly grow its fan base. And we should also acknowledge that this is a prequel, and most fans have already made their peace with the fact that we'll never truly return to the world of Sopranos without James Gandolfini. But a film has long been anticipated. As soon as The Sopranos ended, there was already rumblings of a potential film. So the big question on everyone's mind then is this a deserving expansion to the series? I would say it certainly is worthwhile. There's a lot to like about the Many Saints of Newark, and chief among those would be the performances. I guess our lead performance would be Alessandro Nivola as Dicky Moltisanti, who is a character that's alluded to and mentioned, but never seen in the series. He's dead when the show actually starts, but of course he is the father of Christopher Moltisanti. And because of that, he has a bit more, carte blanche to make this role his own. And I thought he did an excellent job. He managed to show a great deal of range throughout the film as well. And he probably gets the most screen time, and because of that, it really needed to be a good performance, and it was. But the other performance everyone's going to be talking about is the performance of Michael Gandolfini, who's taken up the role that his father made famous, James Gandolfini, as Tony Soprano. Now, he has a lot of the mannerisms that his father had. He clearly studied that a lot. And I was slightly worried that this just would be, an impression. However, he does also bring a naivety and sensitivity that Tony would have at this age that really suits the character. And in that way, he manages to both make the role his own while also paying homage to his late father. I thought he was very good in the film. Those are probably the two main characters in the film, and their relationship is pivotal to the plot. But I do want to talk about some other performances as well. Tony's mother, Olivia, is played by Vera Farmiga, and she absolutely blew me away in this film. She manages to just nail the character from the series, so no one has to awkwardly say, "Hey, Olivia Soprano, hey, are you Tony's mom?" We don't need that. It's so on point. But she also manages to give the character a bit of a more sympathetic side that actually made me feel for this character in retrospect. Looking at the series now, I'm going to look at this character in a bit of a softer view because of how outstanding I thought this performance was. And that's probably one of the rare instances in this film where it kind of will change my viewing of the series, I think. But yeah, I thought she was outstanding. Unfortunately, Tony's other parent doesn't come off as well. We have Johnny Boy Soprano, played by John Bernthal. This was a character that was never really fleshed out in the show, and it feels like they just had a missed opportunity here. They didn't really do much with him. It was kind of a waste. Again, fine performance, but a bit of a waste. Corey Stoll plays Junior Soprano, who I thought he was hilarious, which is kind of what we expect from Junior. I would have liked to have seen maybe a more semi-serious side to this character because it is a prequel. But either way, I really enjoyed this performance, and I honestly could have done with a bit more. One of the new characters I do want to highlight is the role played by Leslie Odom Jr. He plays Harold. I thought he was an interesting character, and we haven't really had a person of colour in the Sopranos universe that is so pivotal to the story. So I liked that in. I thought it gave a fresh dynamic, and I thought the performance was very good. Again, could have done with a little bit more with them, but the biggest compliment I can give all of those performances is that, at the very least, it doesn't feel like they're copying something that came before. And that kind of is a problem with some of the other performances. We have a young Silvio Dante and a young Paulie Walnuts, for example. Sil is just so over the top that it's hilarious and you can't take it seriously. It's like an impression you'd see on SNL or something. Like, genuinely, one of the biggest laughs of my whole screening was just watching him walk and his over-the-top mannerisms. And yeah, maybe that's what they were going for, but it feels like he just kind of wasted a character that we all like here. Paulie Walnuts kind of had the opposite problem. The most ridiculous over-the-top character in the show is very sedate and subtle here. And yeah, it just feels like a real misplay to take two characters we love and not really nail them, in my opinion. We have a lot of new characters in the film as well, and they're mostly just stereotypes. I mean, then again, look, it's a Sopranos movie. I probably should have expected that. Something that we get so much of in modern movies is fan service, and I kind of expect it with big blockbusters or long-running franchises, but it sort of caught me off guard here. Characters are like dropping lines that fans love. I guess they're something that is just as relevant for them to say 30 years later, but there you go. We also get a moment or two that's referenced in the series. We see it play out here, and yeah, the movie definitely has a case of the prequels. And normally that would annoy me, but I was mostly okay with it here. I think it was okay with me here because it didn't really take away from the story. Whenever it happened, it was pretty fleeting. And, you know, let's be honest, this is a movie that I wasn't sure we'd ever get. It was a series in a world I thought we'd never return to, and it's been quite a while, so I was okay in it indulging itself in a little bit of fan service. And it did kind of worry me that a lot of other characters and locations are going to be crammed in for the sake of it. But once I heard they cut Edie Falco out of the film, I was like, well, hopefully that won't be a concern. I mean, the film is a little bit overstuffed, but thankfully it's not all as fan servicey as I kind of feared. But yeah, there's a lot of character references and name drops, and it's pretty awkward. Yeah, my father wants me to run a restaurant. Oh, really? Artie? That's how they do it in the movie as well. They look right in the camera and say it. I will say there was one bit of fan service that was a bit much for me, and that is who narrates the film. I guess I'll say light spoilers here, because I don't think it really matters. Obviously, it's at the start of the film. I've seen other reviews mention who narrates the film. I actually knew who it was going into the movie, and I don't think it took away from it. But, you know, just in case, you can skip to right over here if you don't want to know who narrates the movie. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The narrator of the film is Christopher Moltisanti. Huh. Now, if you've never seen the series, well, I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't. Go do that instead. Christopher Moltisanti is Tony's nephew, and Tony kills him late into the series. So Christopher is narrating this from the grave, aware that he's been killed and aware of who killed him. And that really ruined my immersion into the movie, because it really made me ask a lot of questions. Like, oh, I guess there's an afterlife in the Sopranos universe. So I guess all the people that are dead in the show could possibly narrate this. And then I was like, well, if Tony's not narrating this, does that mean that Tony's still alive? Because it probably would have made as much sense for him to narrate this film. See what I mean? It just opened a big can of worms. But the biggest sin it commits is the fact that it adds nothing. The narrator is totally pointless, barely in good chunks of the film. It was just really unnecessary fan service that, if anything, detracted from the film for me. As much as I will say I enjoyed the film, it's things like that that make it very clear it's pretty much just for the fans. I mean, I can't imagine you getting anything out of this if you've never seen the series, and hey, that's fine. A Sopranos movie for the Sopranos fans makes total sense. But even still, if you are a big fan like me, going to see this film, it doesn't forgive all its mistakes or let it off the meat hook. We've always been told that the relationship between Dickie Moltisanti and Tony Soprano was a formative one for the latter in him becoming the mob boss that we all came to know. That was really the film's main goal, to sell us on that relationship. The film's marketing even leaned into that with the tagline of, "Who made Tony Soprano?" And despite that, I don't feel like they really managed to nail that here. I don't fully blame it on the film's execution of that relationship, but I do blame it on the film's pacing and the sheer amount of plot threads it has going on. A lot of people have said this probably would have done better as a mini-series, and I really have to agree with that. At times it meanders, for one, but it also has all these plot threads. Tony and Dickie's relationship, the civil unrest of the 60s, the conflicts between Italian and African Americans in the underworld, Tony's upbringing and Tony's family, and that's just the broad strokes, and it's a 2-hour film. The thing is, we've never met our lead character Dickie before, and his relationship with Tony is pivotal to the film, so they have to do a lot to set him up and for that relationship to matter, and they have to push a lot of stuff to the side as a result. Now, they awkwardly try and tie a lot of plot threads and themes together through Dickie's goomah, but it's very, very messy, and it also messes with the pacing of the film, which starts off pretty evenly, gets kind of slow in the middle, and then sprints all the way to the end for what I felt was a very rushed conclusion. It's simply a case of having too much going on. The film is really overstuffed, and it feels like it doesn't know what the purpose of the film ultimately is, or what the story they wanted to tell is. It feels like they wanted to tell a little bit of everything, but not focus on one thing in particular. Because if it wanted to be a Tony Soprano origin film, it didn't really work for me, because I don't feel like this character is now necessarily on the road to becoming the Tony Soprano we know. If it wanted to focus on the relationship between him and Dickie, that's fine, but but it feels like it's only sporadically interested in doing that. So much so that at times the film feels like an origin for a character we don't really know. And isn't that what we all wanted from a Sopranos film? All that said, I didn't dislike this film. I love The Sopranos, and I thought it was pretty cool to be back in this world. I don't think it really added or took away from the show's legacy. If anything, it just felt like a sort of lateral move. And yeah, if you're not a fan or you've never seen the series, you probably won't get a lot out of this. Even if you are a fan though, it might still fall short if you have some lofty expectations. But there is still a lot of stuff to enjoy. The story is pretty serviceable. I was pretty entertained throughout the whole thing and thought it was fun. There is a lot of fan service, but there's times where it does work. And it's fun to see these characters again brought to life with some new performances that, for the most part, are pretty damn good. That being said, you can't get away from the fact that the movie is pretty overstuffed and a little rushed. And as a result, this isn't a 5-star meal from Vesuvio. It's more of a sloppy veal parm from Satriali's.
Veal Parmesan sandwich. Fuck you.
Hey, it's better than gabagool from the fridge, am I right? Oh! Still, the Many Saints of Newark is a pretty tasty treat, even though it might leave you hungry for something a bit more substantial. Look, I know I said the film ended pretty suddenly, but can we all just be grateful that this time it didn't end on a random cut to black?